what's up, everyone, and welcome back to the Endzone Report. I am your host, Chris, and we are here once more to tackle the NFL. Got another awesome episode for y'all today, filled with injuries, storylines, and looking ahead to Week 7. We had another crazy, insane week in the NFL with Week 6. Looking ahead, we've got some interesting matchups, like the Pittsburgh Steelers taking on the Bengals on Thursday Night Football. I think that has been rated the second oldest quarterback matchup in history. I believe it was Tom Brady and Drew Brees still holding that record, but we've got Aaron Rodgers of the Pittsburgh Steelers taking on Joe Flacco and the Cincinnati Bengals. So let's hope nobody gets hurt in this game with the amount of years of experience that we have at quarterback this Thursday. Couple reminders at the top of the episode. You can watch the show every week at youtube.com/the Endzone Report. You can also listen to the audio version on Spotify. Check out the social media pages as well on Facebook, Instagram, and X. I post a lot of artwork, news updates, injury reports, and so much more to go along with each episode every week. So check that out, follow it, hit that subscribe button because it helps the show a lot. And I appreciate everyone that has supported the show so far in its first year on the streaming sphere. So with that, let's head over and see what's up with the NFL. We have yet another week of insane injuries coming out of Week 6. Puka Nacua, wide receiver of the Los Angeles Rams, has suffered an ankle sprain. He has been labeled day-to-day. Now, there is a very slim possibility that he will come out and play in Week 7. He did return to the field last week, but he did not show any stats. He was just running a few routes to stretch out his legs. But it is also very possible that he will miss this game. Emeka Egbuka, the superstar rookie for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, has suffered a hamstring injury. He is likely out until Week 10 because of that bye week coming up. It's very, very doubtful that he's going to even be playing on Monday Night Football. So those fantasy nutheads out there who have Emeka, just be prepared to be without him until Week 10. Garrett Wilson, wide receiver of the New York Jets, suffered a knee injury. He is very unlikely to play this week as well. So you're looking at Mason Taylor, Josh Reynolds, and I think Alan Lazard is still there. So pretty slim pickings on the Jets front for the fantasy world. We will see how Justin Fields bounces back after an 0-6 start to the season. DJ Moore, wide receiver of the Chicago Bears, was hospitalized overnight after the game on Sunday with what appears to be a groin injury. No other updates have been given on that. Juwan Jennings told reporters that he is dealing with 5 broken ribs and both a high and low ankle sprain. That man needs some bubble wrap and duct tape because he is falling apart just like the rest of the 49ers. Calvin Ridley, wide receiver of the Tennessee Titans, suffered a hamstring injury as well. Marvin Harrison Jr., wide receiver of the Arizona Cardinals, exited the game early with a concussion, and David Njoku of the Cleveland Browns exited his game as well with a knee injury. Before the game started, during warm-ups on Sunday, Anthony Richardson fractured his orbital. I believe he was using one of those stretchy bands, and it flicked him in the eye during warm-ups, so he required surgery, and he is now on the IR. I believe the Colts picked up Brett Rippon as backup to Daniel Jones. And then we have Fred Warner of the San Francisco 49ers exited the game early and will undergo season-ending surgery for both a dislocated and broken ankle. So, again, 49ers are slowly falling apart. That kind of wraps up the big injuries of Week 6. We also had a first coaching fire of the year, and that'll bring us into the storyline. So let's head over to the weekly reaction. So So to kick off our week 6 storylines, like I said, we did have a first head coach firing of the 2025 season. That was Brian Callahan of the Tennessee Titans was let go by the organization this week. Mike McCoy will be taking over as interim head coach. I believe he was the senior offensive assistant. I think he did a stretch of seasons with the Chargers as their offensive coordinator. So he does have some experience in the NFL offense related. So we will see how the Titans potentially bounce back from their, I believe they're 1-5 this season. We'll see what those Titans look like underneath Mike McCoy. As far as I know, Cam Ward will be the starter going forward. There have been no talks of benching him, but we will see if they make any type of trade movement around that deadline for the season. But Mike McCoy will get the reins as head coach. Now, historically, we have seen in the past when a coach is fired midseason, that team tends to go on and win their next game. So potentially, maybe the Titans bounce back with another win this week. I will give my pick of that matchup coming up during the weekly preview. So with that, we do have our first coaching fired by the Tennessee Titans. Second on the storylines, we had two massive running back performances this week in week 6. The first, Rico Dowdle rushing for a total of 239 scrimmage yards against his former team, the Dallas Cowboys. So it was a huge revenge game for him. Pulling up his stats, we had 30 rush attempts for 183 yards. And then receiving, he had 4 receptions for another 56 yards. He also had a touchdown and a fumble in there, but we are going to ignore that fumble because it was such a massive performance by him. We also had Bijan Robinson of the Atlanta Falcons. He had another huge game. He had 238 scrimmage yards. Looking at his stats, he had 19 rush attempts for 170 yards, 6 receptions for another 68 yards, and then he did score a touchdown as well. So 2 massive running back performances. One, a huge revenge game for Rico Dowdle, and then Bijan Robinson and the Falcons upsetting the Buffalo Bills on Monday Night Football. So that was 2 massive performances. If you had them in fantasy, you probably won your week. Moving on to the next storyline. The Eagles and Bills have lost 2 in a row. Eagles have lost to the Broncos and, surprisingly, the Giants, their division rivals. And then the Bills have lost to the Patriots last week, and then the Falcons, like I said, on Monday Night Football. I think these 2 teams will bounce back. The Bills go on a bye this week, but the Eagles are facing Minnesota in Minnesota. I'm going to be teasing my pick for a little bit here. I am picking Philly to bounce back against Minnesota, even though I would love to see Minnesota crush the Eagles. I can't imagine seeing the Eagles go 3 losses in a row. So I will be picking the Eagles this week in week 7 against Minnesota. When the Bills return, let me pull up their schedule here. Who do they play in week 8? The Bills, they will be on the road to Carolina. That'll be very, very interesting. But I think looking ahead, I will be picking Buffalo to bounce back as well. So I am not too worried. I know they have been 2 major teams in discussion the last week with losing those 2 weeks in a row. You know, the Giants was a game that they should have probably won, but they ended up getting blown out by Jackson Dart and Cam Scadaboo. Same thing with the Bills. I think they were heavily favored, if I can recall, but Michael Penix, Drake London, and Bijan Robinson said otherwise. The Broncos were a little bit tougher. I was rooting for my Broncos, of course, but I was pretty surprised that they were able to pull that one out. And then the Patriots, that game just kind of got out of hand for Buffalo. I was expecting Buffalo to take down their rival as well. I believe that was the Sunday night game in week 5. So I am not too worried about the Eagles and Bills right now, but I thought it was very, very interesting that both those teams who have been Super Bowl contenders for the last, 4 or 5 years now, have now lost 2 in a row to teams that they probably should have beat realistic on paper. So I thought that was an interesting stat to pull up today for a storyline. Next, I've already kind of mentioned this already, but the New York Jets start the season off with 0-6 with Aaron and Glenn and Justin Fields. Aaron Glenn, of course, being the head coach coming from the Detroit Lions, and Justin Fields coming in at quarterback after previously making a run in Chicago and Pittsburgh. I am very surprised that we have not seen any firings come out of the New York Jets organization, specifically Aaron Glenn. I was very, very expecting to come into Monday or at the very latest Tuesday we are letting go of Aaron Glenn. We are moving in a different direction after the 0-6 start. But as far as I know, they are still employed. Let me double check to make sure no news has come out for the Jets. Because I'm surprised that not even an OC firing has come about. So the Jets have made a decision on Justin Fields. I know that there was talk within the organization of several people backing Tyrod Taylor starting, but it looks like Justin Fields will still continue to start at quarterback in week 7. Aaron Glenn is under heavy fire. No surprise there. But there is no talk of letting him go. I'm sure with him being a first-time head coach, maybe the Jets are giving him a little bit of benefit of doubt. Maybe they will somehow come out of this rut at 0-6. Maybe they will end up winning a game or two here. But starting the season off 0-6 can pretty much guarantee that they will not make the playoffs this year, which is very disappointing for the amount of weapons and coaching that they have put in place for this organization. And I just feel really bad for the Jets fans. You know, they went through the Aaron Rodgers phase the last couple years. Now they have to deal or suffer with this new phase of Justin Fields and Aaron Glenn. I know I was very excited for this team. I believed in Justin Fields. I really liked Aaron Glenn as a head coach prospect. But this team just hasn't found their momentum going into 2025. You know, they really only have Garrett Wilson at wide receiver. Mason Taylor, you know, the rookie, he's shown spurts of some life in him. He would be a really good asset going forward. And I like Breece Hall. I still believe in the athlete that is Breece Hall, but I think that he really needs to get traded to a different team to kind of show what he can do. I think he is just physically and mentally dying in New York, and New York doesn't really need him, honestly. They need to just build around Garrett Wilson. Now, does that mean they continue with Justin Fields after an 0-6 start? I very much doubt that going into 2026 season, but you never know. Maybe they have a decent offseason and Justin Fields finally gets a coaching staff that can raise his strengths up and work on his weaknesses. But I do think coming into 2026 season, Aaron Glenn will not be the head coach of the Jets and Breece Hall will not be on this team. So we will keep monitoring the situation. If they lose this week, I can't think of any other reason why Aaron Glenn would be still employed as the head coach. If they do go 0-7, that is major, major red alerts for the New York Jets coaching staff and possibly the starting of Justin Fields. They may have to pivot to Tyrod Taylor if they do end up going 0-7 this season. So that is the Jets storyline coming out of week 6. And then the last storyline I have is something a little different that we haven't really done on the show yet. We kind of did this with the coaching staff. We're going to do a QB check-in with all the 32 teams. We have some question marks around those teams, and I will bring those up as well. So we're going to kick it off with the NFC North. So this is the Minnesota Vikings, Detroit Lions, the Green Bay Packers, and the Chicago Bears. So obviously, Green Bay Packers, they are committed to Jordan Love. He is healthy. He's finally getting some momentum on offense. I know Jaden Reed's injury has really held them back a little bit. Christian Watson is constantly injured, but he is set to return this week potentially. He has been spotted at practice. So that leaves Matthew Golden and Romeo Dobbs and Dontavian Wicks at wide receiver. Tucker Kraft has been a sensation at tight end. And Josh Jacobs has just been lighting the league on fire at running back. So Jordan Love is safe to go as the Packer quarterback. Similar to the Packers, Detroit, they are committed to Jared Goff. He is the guy in Detroit. His job is not up for debate whatsoever. Minnesota Vikings. This is where I have the first question mark at quarterback. We previously have seen Carson Wentz the last couple of weeks. J.J. McCarthy started the year at quarterback, then suffered an injury. He was also not performing as likely. So I think it was a combination of the injury and performance as to why he was sat down and replaced with Carson Wentz. Now the big question is coming into week 7 against Philly. Right now, everything's pointing to J.J. McCarthy starting against the Eagles. I was really anticipating that they would at least give the Carson Wentz experience one more try so that he could have a revenge game against the Philadelphia Eagles. So we will monitor that as the week goes on and wait for an announcement. But as of right now, it's looking like J.J. McCarthy will start at quarterback against Philly this weekend. And then Chicago Bears, they have obviously committed to Caleb Williams. They took him first overall in the draft. So that team is set to go with their quarterback. Moving on to the NFC East. We have the Dallas Cowboys, Washington Commanders, New York Giants, and the Philadelphia Eagles. Eagles, obviously, committed to Jalen Hurts. No questions there. Same thing with Commanders. Jaden Daniels, that's their dude. Now, the Cowboys are interesting with Dak Prescott, but he is slinging it. Even though they are sitting at 2-3-1, he, for right now, is the dude in Dallas. And then the New York Giants, we have been experiencing the Jackson Dart sensation in the Giants. So that division is pretty much locked and loaded for their quarterbacks. No question marks there as of now. Moving on to the NFC South. Baker Mayfield, of course, with the Bucs. He's a lock-in. Michael Penix Jr. has been winning games, so I think he is a lock-in there for the Falcons. The Panthers have been surprisingly winning games, so I think Bryce Young, as of right now, he won't be replaced. I don't think he'll get replaced at all during this season if they continue there. Now the Saints, they are sitting at 1-5, but Spencer Rattler has been quite an experience in these last 6 weeks. Now, if they continue to lose games, I will not be surprised if they throw out Tyler Shuck, who they drafted this past draft class. And we'll see what they have in them. They are clearly going to be taking a quarterback next year. I know a lot of reports are coming out that they will be gunning for Arch Manning, who right now is slated to be the number 1 quarterback off the board in the 2026 draft. So right now the Saints seem to be committed to Rattler because he is performing very well. They're just not winning games because that team is on fire. But I'm putting a question mark on the Saints as of right now because of the record. And then last for the NFC, we're going to the West. 49ers, this is an interesting one. I put a question mark here because Mac Jones has been winning games and he's been performing very well. Now, Brock Purdy is slated to potentially start again this week. They obviously paid Brock Purdy starter money, so he will be the starter once he is healthy. But there comes a question that if Brock Purdy starts to underperform or he's not fully healthy, I don't think the Niners are going to hesitate to pivot back to Mac Jones because he has been a sensation. He's been battling through injuries, much like Juwan Jennings. I think he might even have worse injuries than Juwan Jennings, and he has started more games than Jennings, surprisingly. So I put a question mark on the Niners just because of the Mac Jones performance so far after week 6. The Seahawks obviously committed to Sam Darnold this year. He's been a pretty wild sensation. I will take the L on that. Like I've stated multiple weeks now, I was expecting Sam Darnold to basically plummet in Seattle, but he has been quite a experience to watch. So I think his job, at least for the rest of this year, is safe. And potentially going into 2026, they could be committed to him and have him start next year. The Rams, Stafford seems to be staying healthy. He did lose Puka possibly this week, but Stafford is the dude for right now. It seems like that back is holding up. And now the Cardinals. I put a question mark around them because Kyler Murray has suffered that foot injury. Looks like Jacoby Brissett will start once again this week. But Jacoby isn't the answer. They're sitting here at 2-4. They weren't doing a whole lot with Kyler anyways. It's very possible that Kyler is not with the Cardinals next year. If he does not get healthy and start being productive on the field, there's going to be a new quarterback starting in 2026 for the Arizona Cardinals. So I'm putting a question mark around them for not just the rest of this year, but going into 2026. Moving over to the AFC, let's head over to the AFC North. So we have the Steelers, obviously committed to Aaron Rodgers for this year at least. They are 4-1, so very surprising there for Aaron Rodgers. His job is not in question. The Bengals have been suffering quite a bit with the Jake Browning experience. They now have Joe Flacco coming over from Cleveland. But with Flacco not winning games, we'll see what happens. So I put a question mark here. Joe Burrow, at the very earliest, could be coming back in mid-December. But if this team only has 3 to 4 wins going into December, there is no reason to start Joe Burrow. I would say sit him until next year and try again. So I'm going to put a question mark by the Bengals just because if Flacco ends up not being the answer for the rest of the year, they could pivot back to Browning. So it's a little bit messy in Cincy. The Ravens. I didn't put a question mark here because Lamar will come back. Now, I know they weren't doing so hot even with Lamar, but at 1-5, I think the Ravens will start to bounce back once Lamar is healthy. They will hopefully find their groove. I think they have a pretty easy schedule after the bye week coming up. So we will mark them as Lamar is safe to go. But 1-5, there is a very good chance that the Ravens won't make the playoffs this year, which is very, very shocking. The Cleveland Browns, I put a big, giant question mark because we got Dylan Gabriel going on right now, and Shadur Sanders is the backup, even if Stefanski doesn't want to admit it. So I think at some point, with the team going 1-5 so far, we could be getting Shadur Sanders out there on the field starting for one of these weeks. So big question mark around the Browns for sure. Heading over to the AFC West. This one's pretty locked and loaded. Except for one team in particular, the Chargers, obviously committed to Herbert, no questions there. Broncos, they love Bo Nix, as do I, so he is a lock and loaded there. And the Chiefs obviously have their guy of the century, Patrick Mahomes, so no questions there. Now the Raiders, big giant question mark around the Raiders. Geno Smith has been horrendous. He leads the league, I think, in interceptions or is second or third on that list. So we could potentially be seeing a benching of Geno Smith if he does not pick it up. I know he did win their game last week, so they are sitting at 2-4, but he is on thin ice, so big question mark on the Raiders. Heading over to the AFC South. The Colts, obviously, they have Daniel Jones, so they are good there. Anthony Richardson has been set on IR. Brett Rippon is not a threat to Daniel Jones, so that job is safe. Same thing with Jacksonville. Nobody is threatening Trevor Lawrence. They are sitting at 4-2, so they are ready to go. Stroud, obviously, is their quarterback of their franchise for now. I know they're at 2-3, but they are starting to bounce back a little bit. They have been suffering a lot of injuries and then trading a lot of their offensive line away prior to the 2025 season, but Stroud is safe to go for quarterback. The Titans, with the firing of Brian Callahan, we'll see what Mike McCoy brings to the table. But I think Cam Ward is safe for the rest of the year. There's really nobody else to swap out at quarterback anyways on the Titans. So that division is pretty locked up at quarterback. AFC East. Patriots, obviously committed to Drake May. He is slinging the ball. They are now leading the division after their win to go to 4-2. The Bills, same thing, committed to Josh Allen, so there's no question marks there. The Dolphins, now Tua, this is very interesting. He is one concussion away from getting pulled out of the season. If he does get one concussion, he will retire. Now, the Dolphins sitting at 1-5. I don't think they're going to bench Tua. I think they're going to fire Mike McDaniel before they do that. So I think Tua is safe as long as he stays healthy. And then the Jets, I've already talked about this already. I think Justin Fields could potentially be benched for Tyrod Taylor if he does not win a game coming up. If they go 0-7, I got to imagine the OC is gone Aaron Glenn has got to be gone, and they could potentially start Tyrod Taylor at quarterback. So we will check in with the Jets after week 7. I think we hit everybody. Let me double check. Yes, we did. So that is the quarterback roundup. Some question marks there, but I think for the rest of the 2025 season, we have our starting quarterbacks for the league. So that'll wrap up this week's storylines. One last thing to do before we head into Fantasy Corner, and that is the awesome Chase-O-meter. Now, Chase Brown had a little bit of a bounce back. He went from running back 32 to the running back 30 after week 6. His stats are looking like this. So fantasy points. Now, again, as I've said numerous times, week after week, this all depends on your current standings in your fantasy leagues. I try to use as much standard as possible. So in the standard league that I run, he got 8.9. I think a lot of leagues that he was sitting at 7.9, depending on the scoring. But he had 9 carries for 42 rushing yards, and then 2 catches for a measly 7 yards. And then he did not score a touchdown, but he did score a 2-point conversion on the touchdown that they did score with Joe Flacco. So that is kind of in the plus, where he is getting some red zone targets, even if it's just a 2-point conversion. So right now, not looking good for Megan, the Gridiron Goddess. Looks like James Martins is looking $20 richer as we go on. But we will keep monitoring the Chase-O-meter. Looking at the Bengals schedule, they have a pretty easy schedule coming up. They got Pittsburgh on Thursday, so I'll talk about that game coming up. And then they have week 8. They have the Jets. Could be a winnable game. The Jets defense hasn't been super solid this year. Chicago, definitely winnable. Chase Brown could bounce back with the Chicago game. Then they go on a bye in week 10. And they play Pittsburgh once again. Then they got New England, Baltimore. So kind of tough matchups there. They got Buffalo. Then they got Baltimore once again. Very kind of a tough. Well, Baltimore maybe not so much. Their defense hasn't been so great. So maybe Chase Brown can bounce back in the Baltimore games. But I think with Buffalo and New England, he'll struggle there. Miami has the worst rush defense. So if you're looking at starting Chase Brown, if you somehow make it to your fantasy championships playoffs, you could potentially start Chase Brown against Miami. They are the worst rushing defense. So he could have a massive stat day. So we're going to look very, very closely at the Chase-O-meter in week 16. Week 17, they got Arizona. Definitely, again, another winnable game there. I know the defense has been a little tougher this year, but Brown could potentially have a bounce back game there too. And then week 18, they have the Cleveland Browns, who that is not looking good. The Browns have been a pretty solid on defense, especially with Myles Garrett there. So that could be a bust game for Chase Brown. But we will see what the future brings with Chase Brown as we go through the season. So that'll do it for this week's Week 6 reaction. Let's head over to the Fantasy Corner for our hero and villain of the week. All right, welcome back to the Fantasy Corner here on the Endzone Report. Our hero of the week is Bijan Robinson, running back of the Atlanta Falcons. Again, depending on your league settings, this is the standard league that I set up for all my stats. He is sitting at 35.8 on week 6. He had 19 rush attempts for 170 yards, 6 receptions for 68 receiving yards, and then he had that touchdown, like I mentioned in the storyline today. So Bijan Robinson is the hero of the week. Villain of the week for week 6 is Ramondre Stevenson, running back of the New England Patriots. He is sitting at 1.8 measly fantasy points this week. He had 13 rush attempts for only 18 rushing yards. Pretty bummer stats there, and 0 touchdowns, which is very surprising because we had the news right before week 6 of the Antonio Gibson season-ending injury, and TreVeyon Henderson hasn't really been involved in the offense. So very disappointing if you did end up starting Ramondre after that Antonio Gibson report of the injury. So that'll do it for this week's Fantasy Corner. Come back next time for Week 7's Hero of the Week and Villain of the Week. Let's head over to the weekly preview with the game picks and the matchup of the week. So my Week 6 picks were looking pretty solid until they weren't. Let's pull up the sheet here. I went 10 correct picks out of the 15 matchups that we had. I missed on the Philly game, which probably a lot of people did against the Giants on Thursday night. I missed the Cowboy game, which I should have known better because Carolina has been a sneaky team this year. Then I was looking pretty good up until Sunday night and Monday night games. I got the Detroit game wrong against the Chiefs. That game got out of hand. That was all Chiefs early on. And then Monday night, I got the Bills game and the Washington game wrong. So that is a huge bummer there for Week 6. But we will look ahead to Week 7 and hopefully bounce back. So pulling up the slate for Week 7. Thursday Night Football, we've got the Pittsburgh Steelers taking on the Cincinnati Bengals. Looks like these Steelers are favored by 5.5. The over-under is 43.5. I am taking the Steelers here on the road against the Bengals. The Bengals have been horrendous on defense, and the offense has struggled, but there's some hope still alive with Joe Flacco at quarterback. But I think Aaron Rodgers, DK Metcalf, and Jalen Warren are going to get the job done. So if you have any Steelers in fantasy, go ahead and start them against the Cincinnati Bengals defense. Heading over into Sunday, we've got another early game. Los Angeles Rams take on the Jacksonville Jaguars in London. Looks like the Rams are favored by 3. The over-under is 44.5. This was a tough one for me because the Jacksonville Jaguars have been a sneaky team this year. But I'm going to take the Los Angeles Rams, on technically the road. Looks like Jacksonville has been absorbed by London, England over the years as their home team. So the Rams are going on the road technically. But I'm going to take Stafford and the Rams. Even without Puka Nacua, I think Stafford can get it done with Devontae Adams and Kyler Williams there. Then the noon slates, we've got the Philadelphia Eagles going into Minnesota to take on the Vikings. Eagles are favored by only 1.5, which is very surprising. We'll see if that changes with the quarterback announcement. The over-under is 43.5. Now, as much as I want to take the Minnesota Vikings because they would probably help me in my picks if they end up winning, I am going to play it safe, and I'm going to pick the Philadelphia Eagles on the road to bounce back after their 2-loss streak. I just can't see the Eagles going 3 in a row, so I am taking the Eagles this week. The New England Patriots take on the Tennessee Titans with their new coach, Mike McCoy. Patriots are favored by a touchdown. Over-under is 42.5. This is a tough one. Let me pull up my pick sheet here. As much as I want to take the Titans and give into that historical data of a team winning their game after a new coach, I think the Titans don't count towards that. I think New England with Drake May is going to get the job done on the road. So I am taking New England this week, regardless of the coaching change in Tennessee. The Las Vegas Raiders take on the Kansas City Chiefs, their big division rivals. Chiefs are favored by a whopping 11.5 points. The over-under is 45.5. I'm not going to dive too much into this. I'm taking the Chiefs. Now, this could be a trap game, but that's got to be one massive trap game. I mean, they're going to get Rashee Rice back. Patrick Mahomes is playing out of his mind. Hollywood Brown has been a reliable target for him. Travis Kelce, Xavier Worthy is back. They can't get that running game going, though. They got to do something with that run game, either with Kareem Hunt or Pacheco. I don't think they're going to get very far in the playoffs this year if they do not figure out that running back room. Now, the Raiders, on the other hand, they're probably going to be without Brock Bowers again. Jacoby Myers has been pretty irrelevant. It's been pretty much Ashton Genty as the showboat here in Las Vegas. But I'm taking the Chiefs. I'm not even going to question it. It could be a trap game, but I don't believe it. It's all Chiefs this week. The Carolina Panthers, coming off their hot win against the Dallas Cowboys, is taking on the New York Jets, who are sitting at 0-6. The Panthers are only favored by 1.5. The over-under is 42.5. I believe I took the Panthers here. Let me pull up my pick sheet. Yes, I did take the Panthers. I'm finally going to give in to the Bryce Young train with possibly Rico Dowdle. Those Canales interview quotes are very interesting where he was asked, is Rico taking over or is Chuba Hubbard going to be the running back one? He basically says, we'll figure it out. We'll see. Rico will always have a spot in a important role. So I think we're going to get a 50-50 split once Chuba Hubbard is healthy. I am taking the Panthers on the road to force the Jets to go 0-7 and to finally swap out head coaches and possibly bench Justin Fields because that experiment is not working. The Miami Dolphins take on the Cleveland Browns. Browns are actually favored by 3. The over-under is a measly 40.5. This is going to be a disgusting game. I am taking the Miami Dolphins. I'm pretty nervous about the Cleveland Browns defense, but that offense cannot get anything done with Dylan Gabriel. I think the only exciting piece on that team is Quinshon Judkins, who basically disappeared last week. But I'm taking the Miami Dolphins to win over the Browns this week on the road. Next up, we've got the New Orleans Saints taking on the Chicago Bears. Bears are favored by 5.5. The over-under is 47.5. This was another tricky one for me. I'm going to take the Saints. I think the Bears are going to be brought back down to earth. I think Spencer Rattler can get it done. Hopefully they can get some Alva Kamara going on, Chris Olave going on, and Kendre Miller. We saw Taysom Hill get a touchdown, so he's probably going to be involved. Juwan Jennings, Rashid Shaheed has been a pretty reliable target for Rattler as well. So I'm going to cross my fingers and my toes, and I'm going to take the Saints against the Bears. The New York Giants take on my Denver Broncos. Broncos are favored by a touchdown. The over-under is 40.5. I'm just going to blow by past this one because you all know I'm taking the Broncos there. They are my team. I got to take them every week. But that one should be an interesting game to see how Jackson Dart and Cam Scatterbo do against that top-notch Broncos defense. The Indianapolis Colts take on the Los Angeles Chargers. The Chargers are favored by 1.5. The over-under is 48.5. Is that the highest one? No, that is not. That is the second highest of the week. That is massive. This could be, I think this might be my matchup of the week. Let me look at some of the other ones coming up. Nope. I think that's going to be my matchup of the week. The Colts sitting at 5-1 and the Chargers sitting at 4-2. I am taking the Colts on the road to go 6-1. I think the Chargers are going to drop down to 4-3 and have the Broncos go up to 5-2 and take the division. So I'm going with Daniel Jones, Jonathan Taylor, Tyler Warren, and Michael Pittman to take on the Chargers on the road. The Packers take on the Arizona Cardinals, probably the Jacoby Brissett-led Cardinals. Packers are favored by 6.5. Over-under is 44.5. I'm taking the Packers here. I'm not going to overthink it. I know they're been kind of struggling there with wide receivers, but Josh Jacobs can get it done. I think that defense is going to smother some hate sauce on Jacoby Brissett. So I'm going with the Green Bay Packers on the road this week. The Washington Commanders take on division rival the Dallas Cowboys. Washington is favored by 2.5. This is the highest over-under, 55.5 points. If you got a Commander or a Dallas Cowboy in your fantasy team, fire these suckers up because you're going to get some points. Let's see who I went with here. I went with Washington on the road. Dallas' defense is one of the worst in the league next to Miami Dolphins. The Commanders could potentially be having Terry McLaurin back. Dallas Cowboys could potentially have CeeDee Lamb back as well. So I don't know. Maybe this will be my matchup of the week. I'm going to switch it. Yeah, I think the Commanders and the Cowboys are going to be my matchup of the week of week 7. This is going to be a fun game to watch. Jaden Daniels going against Dak Prescott. I'm super excited for this game, but I am taking Washington on the road to take down their division rivals. The Atlanta Falcons take on the San Francisco 49ers. The Niners are favored by 2.5. The over-under is 47.5. This was another tricky one, but I'm going to rock the Bijan train, and I'm going to take the Falcons on the road here against maybe a Brock Purdy-led Niners. I guess we'll see how the injury report goes throughout the week. I am going to take Atlanta Falcons here on the road. That is the Sunday night game. Going into Monday night, we got another doubleheader, unfortunately. This one's a little different. This is a back-to-back one instead of going on at the same time. So if you are on the East Coast, this game is not starting until 10 o'clock, and you aren't going to bed till 1. I am so sorry for you. But first up, we've got the Buccaneers going against the Detroit Lions. The Lions are favored by 5.5. The over-under is 52.5. This is going to be a fun game. It would be more fun if they had Emeka Ibuka. Looks like the Bucs could be having Mike Evans back, so we'll see. I am taking Detroit to bounce back from their loss against the Chiefs at home. That defense is going to make some difficult things happen for Baker Mayfield with all his weapons getting injured. So I think Jared Goff and team get the job done at home against Baker Mayfield. Then the last game on the Week 7 slate is the Houston Texans taking on the Sam Darnold-led Seattle Seahawks. The Seahawks are favored by 3. The over-under is 41.5. I am taking Seattle to win this game at home with Sam Darnold. So those are my picks this week. We will see how I do. Hopefully, I can maybe get a perfect score this week. We will see for sure. So that'll do it for the weekly preview. To finish off the episode, we're going to do what we always do, and we're going to show me the money with the DraftKings lineup of the week. Unfortunately, once again, I did bust on my lineup again. I did not win any money back. This week, I am going to do a $3 lineup for potentially $1,000 for first place. For quarterback, I'm going to go with Jared Goff. He is sitting at $6,000 this week on DraftKings, and I'm going to stack him up with Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think he's going to be cooking against those Buccaneers defense, so I'm going with the Goff-Brown stack. Running back, I've got Quinshon Judkins going against that horrendous Miami Dolphin defense. You could start any running back against Miami and get some productivity out of them. He is sitting at $6,000 this week, and the pair with him, I'm going with Jalen Warren on Thursday night against the horrendous Cincinnati Bengals defense. He is sitting at $5,400 this week on DraftKings. To round out my wide receiver core, I got DK Metcalf also going on Thursday night against that terrible Cincinnati Bengals defense. He is sitting at $5,700. And then Cortland Sutton, my dude in Denver, he's at $5,900. I'm gonna have him bounce back with Bo Nix against the Giants defense this week. At tight end, I'm going Mason Taylor because, well, he's cheap and he's the only target for Justin Fields this week. The Carolina Panthers have been a pretty solid defense, but Mason Taylor is going to eat. He's only at $3,400 this week, and he is the one target for Justin Fields, so he's going to get everything. And then at my flex position, I'm going wide receiver this week. I'm going to take the gamble with A.J. Brown against the Minnesota Vikings defense. He is sitting at $5,800 this week. I am going to anticipate and hopefully succeed in guessing that he will bounce back with a pretty good day against Minnesota on Sunday. And then at defense, I'm going with the Green Bay Packers against Jacoby Brissett and the Arizona Cardinals. They are sitting at $3,600. So I paid a little up for that defense. So that'll do it for this week's episode of the Endzone Report. Reminder, check out the social media pages for the show of all the artwork and announcements that I make. Subscribe to the show. It helps it out a lot. You can also check out my movie podcast on YouTube and your favorite podcast listening service as well. Cinematic Reviews. I got Fright Nights going on with Sinners coming out on Friday. And then I'll also be releasing my review episode of Tron Ares, which is currently in theaters now. So check that out as well. So we will see you next time on the other side of Week 7. I hope everybody has a fantastic week of football. I hope you win all your fantasy matchups and any bets you place. I will see you all next week for Week 8.